should start by introducing ourselves. I'll introduce this gentleman to my right. This is, first of all, we are cast and crew of Sailor Moon. To my right, Chloe Proctor, Tuxedo Mask. What do you mean?
Sorry, say that again. Yes, this is John Stalker, the voice director for Sailor Moon.
Wow, I just introduced myself, I guess.
No, I'll do you. We're just trying something new. To my left, Linda Valentine, Sailor Moon.
Okay, now?
I thought we were going to keep us. I thought just mix it up a little bit here.
This one next to me. I had a little bit of hard time with her during the series. She kind of, got under my skin. Sailor Mars, Katie. Finally, at the very end of the table, last but certainly not least, possibly one of the favorites who was there in every single episode of Sailor Moon, Sailor Jupiter, Susan Roman.
We're going to kind of pass it down now. I thought everybody get
You're cut off, John. Get the microphone away from him.
Gotta stop drinking this early in the evening. Well, folks, generally what we like to do, because other than swallowing Skittles, is we kind of like to leave the floor open to you folks. You know who we are. We know nothing about you. Any questions that you might have that pertain to Sailor Moon or our careers, we're pretty well wide open. So, as I said, we generally like to throw the floor open to your questions. Put up your hand. We'll get to hopefully all of you at some point or another, and we'll get all your questions answered. Does that sound good?
Woo!
All right. Let's see a hand, at least one. There we go.
What do you feel about the new production of Sailor Moon?
I had to start with that one.
You going?
Sure, Katie.
We've heard about this new dub coming in for a really, really long time, and we were really super hopeful that we'd be doing it. And we just received word that it got picked up in Los Angeles. So we're hopeful that they'll do a great job, but it's pretty.
I'm actually kind of hopeful they'll do a really lousy job and they'll come back to us.
No.
Crawling.
After all this time, they have to do it justice, but it won't be us. We will not be. I really would be shocked. I think they're doing it right now as we speak. So yeah, I'm hopeful that it's a great series for the fans.
You know what? One of the things, though, that's really important about it all is the fact, though, that it is being done. Because everybody's waited for so long, so it's like, yes, of course we want to do it. But yes, of course we want it done. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes of it and what they do with it, I think.
And just FYI, my understanding, if all of us got this news around the same time, is that they plan to re-record the first four seasons, then progress to season 5. So it's probably, I guess, a good year and a half, 2 years away from being aired, I would think, before they can record it all and then start season 1 and still be far enough ahead that there's no lag in between season 1 and 2.
Next question. Wow, that was it?
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
that's
thank
it.
you.
That's great. You guys are so
We have a
lively.
million questions. Stop being so shy. Yes.
What's your favorite question to answer?
Not that one.
Man, that's like a snake eating his own tail. Favorite question, honestly, is what was it like? What was it like to be a part of something so iconic? For me, that's the coolest answer. Is what was it like to be part of Sailor Moon? For me, it was this. How cool is this? That years go by, and there are now parents who are showing this material to their children, and there's kids now, and my young kids are now finding out after living a few years on this planet that I was tuxedo masked somehow. And so now my kids are running around my house with the tuxedo mask plushie doll saying, hey, wait, how does he say it? Son again, I said, hey, meatballhead. I'm like, hey, meatballhead. So I have two little Sailor Moons running around the house now. And by the way, Susan, the other day, I did not tell you this. The other day I woke up to my 3-year-old daughter going, Sailor Jupiter, Sailor Jupiter, Sailor Jupiter. And my wife said, is she saying what I think she's saying? I said, yeah, she's just chanting Sailor Jupiter. So apparently she's a Sailor Jupes fan. So it's that the thing for me is that it's stood the test of time, and how lucky are we?
That's funny because my husband wakes up with me going, Jupiter, Sailor Jupiter.
I would like to add something to that. Unfortunately, I wasn't there when he was calling out my name. I have that effect on married men. One of the things that I really, really love about this whole process, if I was working in America, I would say process, but I'm working in Canada, so I'll say process. One of the things that I love the most about this is that when we first started doing this, a long, long time ago, we really had no idea that it would become as popular as it did. And in fact, when we first saw it, when I first saw it, I thought, this is really interesting to see female characters portrayed as real people. And I was thinking of, Sailor Moon's mouth movements, like the way it's just so exaggerated. And up until that point, you would never portray a female character looking kind of unattractive. And I loved that. And that was the first thing I thought, because I had done a lot of animation before then, and all the girls were pretty, and they, and they talked like this. And to suddenly be able to go in and say stuff like, this thing is rigged! Even to just get, that's, when she's in the arcade, one of my favorite lines, thank you, hold the applause. I just was so excited to be part of this, but we had no idea. Believe me, we just went in, did it, and went home. And it was only quite a few years later that we realized, hey, and everybody's got great stories when they found out this is like really like a happening thing, and it was just as amazing to us as you can possibly imagine. And maybe you want to share some of your stories about how you found out how popular it was.
Yeah, I had no idea. Sailor Mars was my very, very first series that I'd ever done, and it was an absolute fluke because I had no idea about the voiceover world. I was doing some on-camera stuff, and then I auditioned for it. Again, chaos. We had no idea what was happening in the audition. It was just screaming girls, and just they threw us right in there. And so even months later, after doing this series, we had no idea where it was going or anything. And I was training Kung Fu at the time, and I was obsessed. And I went to Chinatown in Toronto to buy some Kung Fu stuff. And I went into this store, and the entire store was Sailor Moon. And I basically just bought every single Sailor Mars doll, knapsack. And then I went up to the guy working there, and I said, I'm Sailor Mars. And he looked at me and he went, but that's when I knew. I was like, well, if this has got to be something. If I've just spent $5,000 on Ray merchandise, no.
You were his best customer.
Yes. Yes, I was.
Is there another question?
Questions?
If you read the manga, it's like you saw your character that you were doing. Did that help you do the voice?
I didn't personally, and then I won't just make it the Katie Griffin show here, but we didn't know anything about the manga until recently. To be honest with you, Susan and I were at something in Vancouver a couple years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago, and that was our first introduction. We had no idea.
The thing is,
no.
Yeah, the thing is that they didn't give us anything. It was all new, right, in North America. So it wasn't like everybody was going, yes, this is, I mean, there was a very few tiny amount of people going, yes, I've heard about this in Japan, and Like he was suddenly in North America, and there it is. And when we were doing the show, they didn't even give us scripts. Now I know that sounds very strange, but doing Sailor Moon was kind of like doing karaoke. It was almost exactly like doing karaoke, actually. You're sort of going along to the bouncing ball and you're saying the words. And when your words came up, you said the words. So you would say your line says, oh, Darian, I love you so much. And then that would be it. And then, maybe I wouldn't be in the scene for another 4 scenes. And then the next scene would be me going, ah! Like, oh my God! And then that would be that. And we wouldn't even know what was going on in between at all. We didn't know the storylines. We didn't know anything. They didn't tell us anything. So when it started getting really meaty towards the end of the series, you'd be sitting there, you'd be doing your lines, and all of a sudden it'd be like, because we'd be watching the picture at the same time, right? It'd be like, oh. And they'd say, Linda, that was your line. Sorry about that. Can I do it again?
Could you guys all do an improv conversation with your character voices?
I don't know, but I think that Chris kind of like reminds me of my old boyfriend. Chris Saltis, everybody, one of the most important people of the Anime North's entire world.
Chris. Oh, I think he's so dreamy, and I think he'd probably go for me.
Oh, Serena, you're crazy. You're always talking about
Ray? Just because you're
What are you talking about?
Hi, Darian.
Oh, excuse me, he's
Gee
right
whiz,
beside
Chris
me.
has nothing on me.
Okay, guys, good take. Let's do it all again.
What's the weirdest voice acting situation you've been in?
Actually, is this mic on? Can you hear me?
It was on
You don't have to project.
It was. Exactly. Yeah, it is. I guess so.
You're playing with it a
I
little.
don't know. Can I go back?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the weirdest voice acting thing that happened to me was so a lot of the times we audition for things, but then there's also times where you get a direct booking, and that's something where they've obviously heard your tape or whatever, and they just say, yep, that's the guy, come on in. So I get this commercial to do for radio or whatever it is, and I'm waiting in the waiting room to meet whoever is going to greet me for production, and then they said, okay, we're going to take you in the recording booth. I'm like, oh, great, it's great. And I love direct bookings, but it's also nice to know what you're doing. So I didn't see any script, and I don't know why I'm there. And then you start to get a little nervous, and your jugular starts to pump a little bit, because like, I don't know, maybe it's like a lot of text, and I won't do well, so I don't know. And I turned to the guy, and I said, so, what am I doing? He said, you'll be fine, And we're walking through this like maze of production. And I'm like, oh no, I'm just trying to, small talk. And I'm trying to like leave him like, what am I gonna say? Like, what am I doing here? He goes, don't worry, you're gonna be good. I'm like, okay. So then I finally open the door, get into the side of the booth, and you put in the headphones, and there's that glass, and there's people like, hi, how you doing? Hey, Toby, how you doing, buddy? I'm good. So guys, what am I doing? It's really easy. I'm like, guys, please give me something. So it's like, is this like a hidden camera show? What is this? So then finally, it was for some, bank commercial, whatever, and all they needed to have me say was the word for. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, yeah, all you need to say is for. Like, no way. Yep. Okay, and go for it like this. For. And, yep, that's great, man. Thanks so much. And it was one of those ones where like, okay, and we gotta sign the contract. It's legal. You guys are, yeah. And that was, I said one word, and that was a job. So that's my craziest voiceover story.
I had a situation that was kind of similar. I was very young, just out of theater school, and my agent said, okay, I have a booking for you. Just go in there on Monday morning. So I arrive and I say, hello, I'm Susan, and where's my script? And they say, you don't need a script. And my heart started going, I don't need a script. What does that mean? Anyway, they said, okay, come on in. And here we were just going to roll this footage, and all you have to do is the sound effects. Okay. The sound effects of what? And they said, this. And they start rolling the film, and it's a porn film. Not that not that there's anything wrong with somebody who wants to make their living that way, but that's not my thing. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, we didn't roll any sound while the actress, without her clothes on, was doing the scene. So you're going to be doing the sound that she was making as she was doing her thing. And I said, okay. It's just, so I just sort of panted a little bit.
Can you give us an example, Susan?
Yeah. Absolutely not. You know what? After that, after hearing myself pant, I never panted again. I'm a real silent type. So anyways,
And you were playing the guy now, weren't you?
So-
And you were the guy?
She always plays little. No more microphone for you.
so here's the best part. As I'm doing these voices or these sounds, the camera actually rises up and I see the face of the person who I had not seen because her back was to camera. And I knew her. And John, I believe you have a little...
I have an interesting follow-up. I'll bet you know what it is, don't you?
You were watching?
Years later, when my marriage broke down. Interestingly enough, I was called in to do sound effects on a particular movie. Unbeknownst to me, she'd already been in. I did the voice of the big German officer. The movie was called Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. And now the gentleman, and I use the term somewhat loosely, who was interacting, shall we say, with Susan's character, that was me. Doing the sort of, we'll call it parallel grunting. And that was a good story, huh, Susan?
Thanks for telling everybody the title of the film.
I was gonna say, why do I get the feeling this is gonna be the most downloaded
You know what, though? I got a call back to do Ilsa, Tigress of Siberia. There were three. It was, there were three of them. I can't remember, was Ilsa, does Dallas or something.
Back to Sailor Moon.
It's great to digress, isn't it?
Another question?
I'm just curious because there was a lot of editing and the words were different in the English. Was it hard to get the dubbing and the mouse claps correctly?
When we got into the studio, everything had already been translated for us. So, as Linda said before, it's karaoke for us. We had to match the lip flaps, but we matched everything to the English words that as they scrolled across in crazy handwriting too. You couldn't read anything. I don't even know who was writing it, but they were trying to trick us, I think. But because it was like karaoke, if we were saying something like, okay, we have to go right now. It may have been, the lip flap might have been, we have to go right now, but then there'd be 3 extra lip flaps. So every once in a while we'd have to improv and add a few things here and there. We have to go right now, come on, let's go! Or like some sort of crazy improv, I don't know. But yeah, so.
That's why it seemed also, there were times that we were talking so quickly, it was like, getting all these words, and it seemed like we had so much to say, but it was because the lip flaps were going like, kept going. We had to go, Another question?
Okay.
Wait,
Go
this one?
Okay, I'll go first. So, who would win in a cage fight, Sailor Moon or Sailor Mars?
Bring on the cage!
The answer Yeah, the winner
And we
takes
have
on George
we
St.
have a
Pierre.
cosplay.
First of all, let's get real with those heels. She's dead. Second of all, it's Mars. She's dead.
You know, the thing is, I actually think Mars would win because you would start crying. And then she'd get hungry, and then she'd lose her focus, and Darian would walk by. Because Ray is focused.
Whatever she would get.
Well, and also, you know, the little name, it's not well known, but the nickname of Tuxedo Mask was the Cage. Whatever, I'm trying. I got my mic back.
How did it feel between you and him? So, like knowing that you had like a child from the future coming back for like the 30th century.
Okay, that's weird right there, right? I remember finding all this out as I'm going along. I'm like, okay, so wait a second. So Rini, who is my sister, is actually my daughter, and I'm going after this guy, and yet I know that I'm going to be married to him because we've already got a kid in the future. So why am I fighting so hard for this guy? Come on! And I would come home frustrated because of that.
Anybody from over on this side? We have had nobody in this section.
somebody over there.
Oh, well, sure.
Favorite character besides yourselves that you play as?
Sorry? In Sailor Moon?
Yes, in Sailor Moon.
Favorite character aside from yourself?
That's a good question.
No.
We were so married to our own characters. We were so, it's a really tough question. I mean, Jupiter's cool.
I know.
I think Jupiter would be my second favorite. Obviously, it would always be Mars, but yeah, Jupiter, I'm gonna say.
Just like that.
One of the things that because I was in it, and well, so was Katie, right from the very, 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 very beginning when we all wanted. Well, Katie didn't want to be Sailor Moon, but I did. And all of the actresses who auditioned that day when it was first put out to audition, of course, wanted to be Sailor Moon because Sailor Moon is the star and she has the most lines. You know, actors are so cheap. Come on. So I read the description of all the characters, and I do believe that I read for every single character. So the 5. I didn't read for Luna, and I didn't read for any of the villains. And I don't know why. I would love to play a villain, and I never end up playing villains. But anyway, when I wasn't cast as Sailor Moon, I cried, and I said, so they said, oh, you got a booking for Sailor Moon. And I said, great! What scout am I playing? And they said, Sailor Jupiter. And I said, not Sailor Moon? No, you're not Sailor Moon. So that was disappointing. But then I went back and I looked at the description of all the Sailor Scouts, and I said, you know what, it's really funny. I gravitated towards Sailor Jupiter the most, and she was the one that I liked the most. And then when you saw us, all the actors who were playing the Sailor Scouts, you saw us in the room at that point, and we all kind of looked like the character that we were playing. So Katie used to have really, really long, dark hair that almost came down to her waist. There's a shot of us recording Sailor Moon that we should actually fix up and use a little bit. So we're actually in the middle of recording it one day, and I have, believe it or not, this is not my real hair color. So my real hair color is brown, and it was up in a ponytail, and there's Katie with her dark hair down to her waist. And I looked at this photo and I said, my God, we've actually looked, it's eerie. It's as if it was like a little bit of shorthand, which is really good casting. If you have to do something quick and get it done without too much soul searching, it's really nice to have the actress be able to just do it without really thinking.
May I add something, an interesting point that you just tweeted? The producer, it was a French lady, French lady, and I did a lot of other work for her, doing live action dubbing from basically French into English. And when she would cast, and so this is no coincidence, when she would cast, she would pick people who looked like the actors on screen. And I kept saying to Nicole, why do you do this? She said, you know, I won't do her voice, but she...
Do it.
Because they are more like the people. And, you know, she got, for whatever bizarre reason, she obviously knew what she was doing because we got really good performance on it. Again, just to be more specific, somebody was tall and skinny and had a mustache. There'd be some guy tall and skinny with a mustache doing the English role of the French performer. It was bizarre.
Could you explain Tuxedo Mask?
No.
What happened there?
I'm just good, Linda.
Upcoming projects. What are you doing next?
Oh, yeah. Actually, there was a animated feature called Leafy that was made in Korea that won a bunch of stuff at Cannes, and then it's now called Daisy, A Hen in the Wild, and I played the lead duck. It's a mallard duck. And so, yeah, that's mallard, international sign for mallard. They say this is driving, this is mallard. And yeah, so I play the lead duck Willie, and that should be out soon, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I've got, I'm voice directing and voice casting 2 series. They're just in the initial stages. I can't really divulge, unfortunately, so I could be lying. I can't give you the names of the companies yet until the shows are really out in the open. But yeah, voice casting, voice directing 2 series, and I have a role in one of them as well, which is great.
I'm doing George of the Jungle right now, a new version of George of the Jungle, which is really insane, really crazy. And I'm this crazy character called Magnolia, who is a scientist. Although not that long ago they said to me, actually, we're thinking she might not actually be a scientist. Oh, okay.
That'll really change the read, won't it?
Yeah, it's pretty funny though. It's very funny.
And I'm working on, I just finished a pilot that I guess I can't talk about, but I'm also working on the reboot of Inspector Gadget. So I think it's going to be pretty awesome. I think it's going to be amazing. I play Kayla, Penny. I don't know if you remember the original series of Penny, but so at HQ we've grown up. I guess, am I supposed to talk? I guess we can because it's going to happen. But anyway, everybody's sort of grown up and we're teenagers, and yeah, we're in headquarters and fighting.
Penny's best friend?
I'm Penny's best friend, Kayla, who's super chatty and crazy. And
What does
fun.
she sound like?
Oh, see, I have a cold right now, Susan.
Really?
But you might not know this. You might not know this. But I don't know if anyone watches Totally Spies, but I play Alex on Totally. Has a really high voice up here, and this is sort of in the same vein as I can't do because I have a cold, but Kayla talks like this too, but she talks a mile a minute. So she'll talk like this. You totally love him. You do. Just admit it. Anyway, this is crazy.
Another question? Yes.
What's the most memorable fan experience you've ever had?
Oh. Wow.
You know what? I'm just going to say my very first fan experience was my most memorable right now. We get a lot of them. Well, first of all, we get a lot. And there's some that are charming and funny, and then you just go, really? Like the very first fan that I ever met right here at Anime North. I didn't... Sounds like another voice coming in off our speaker. Anyways, I got to Anime North and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know whether there was going to be rotten fruit thrown at me or whether people would just go, who? Never heard of her. Never heard of her. So I was like, a little bit nervous, and what am I going to do? Here we go. And I got to the hotel, and this girl came over to me and she looked at my pass that said Linda Valentine, and she saw that it had, special guest pass. And she walked over and she looked at my pass. And then she looked at me. Right. And then she looked back down at me. Linda Valentine. Sailor Moon. Now I've met 2 Sailor Moons. This is going to be a very good weekend. we also get a lot of people that really reach out to us because Sailor Moon was so much it was different for all the different people. What is that? I feel like I'm crazy right now.
No, you're seriously hearing something.
Oh, it's just through the wall?
I think
The doors are open.
It's like somebody doing a relaxation.
Yeah. Right now, he's in there going, yeah, that's Sailor Moon over there. She's talking.
What's that noise on the other side of the wall?
But Sailor Moon was so much to so many people, and everybody had something different, which I'm sure all of you guys had. Like everybody, you know, we have so many people say, you were my childhood. And, you know, for us, that's like, it just warms the cockles of your heart. You're just like, oh. And there's some people that needed Sailor Moon so much, the series. And they would come forward to us and say, you don't understand, you saved my life. When I was younger and I was watching Sailor Moon, I was in a very dark place. And because of Sailor Moon, that took me out of that place. And I was able to get through it, and I wouldn't be here today without it. And it's so much to us to hear stuff like that and to know that we were there for people like that, because for us it was a voice job, it was a job. But to know that it was so much more than that it's amazing, and that's the best things to hear, really. Those stories.
I'm
sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to share a story that happened way back at the beginning too, when we first started appearing at cons. And this was we'd had a panel just like this, and we were getting ready to leave, and there was this one woman there who stood back from the group and appeared. It looked like she was waiting to speak with me, but she didn't want to sort of intrude. And she wasn't wearing a costume, and she was wearing street clothes. She didn't really look as if she was at the con to sort of partake or participate. And at the very end, she came up to me, and she was kind of shy, and she said, I just came here because I wanted to thank you. And I said, well, I'm so pleased to hear that. You're welcome. But, you know, what's up? Because at that point, she was starting to cry. And she said, my father wasn't very nice to me. And the way she said it, I really understood what was going on quite clearly with her father. And she said, when it would happen, I would pretend that I was Sailor Jupiter, and I would say to myself, how would Sailor Jupiter get through this? Because Sailor Jupiter is strong, and she's not going to let anybody intimidate her or get her down. So she would pretend that she was Sailor Jupiter, and she would hear my voice in her head, and that helped her get through this whole horrible situation. And I thought to myself, how humbling is that my voice, without even knowing it, had an impact on someone else's life. And I was just so grateful that I was in this business. I was so grateful. I can't tell you. And we all hear stories like this all the time. Not as, that was kind of extreme, but she made it through, and she was standing there to say thanks, you know? So it's kind of an incredible line of work that we're in.
I don't even know what to
I
say.
don't know how I'm going to follow after that. Out of all the episodes that you shot, what was your favorite line to say or play or voice?
I don't remember a specific line, but when I think back to everything, Ray was so serious. She was just all business all the time. So as soon as they introduced Chad, life got better. The comic relief, it was just so much fun. So everything to do with Chad and Ray, that was kind of my favorite stuff.
I liked being drunk.
To this day.
I'm fine. No, there was one episode when she gets a little bit tipsy, and then she starts speaking French, which was fantastic because the director that was in the room there was French. And I was like, really? And so we were making up as many words as we possibly could. Well, I was, and she's like, that's not a word. What are you saying? It's like, ah, ba, ba, souffle. bibliotech. So I loved being drunk. That was one of my favorite ones for sure.
That's hilarious. Meatball head?
Oh, well, for me, favorite episode was Destiny. Episode 30 when they're in the elevator and they have to reveal to each other. It's like, do they or don't they say actually what's going to go down? And that was cool for me because it was like, finally. It's like the Lois and Clark kind of thing, right? So yeah, that would be my event. The actual line I can't tell you, it was so long ago. But I know he was tall, dark, and handsome in that, and that was good for me.
There are a couple of questions over on this side.
Oh, sure. So it's kind of like hers. When it comes to like everything you filmed, what touched you guys the most? Like what spoke to you and you were just like, I don't know, you just got really emotional over it and you felt it. Is there anything?
When all the Sailor Scouts are lying on the ground dead. There's that, and I gotta try and bring them back to life. Moon, Prism, no, what was it? Moon, Cosmic, what was it? Give me Moon?
Crisis power.
Moon Crisis Power, yeah. Moon
That sounds
Crisis
about right.
Power. Moon Crisis Power.
And they're all lying there.
I think Moon Defibrillator.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit better at that point.
But that was pretty cool doing that. That I remember like being really, really, really emotional doing that. And that was also one of those ones where I kept watching and I go, Linda, come back to us, do your lines. Sorry. But
Yeah.
it was great to watch.
I remember that too, because I remember toward the end, it was very emotional. Everything was coming to a head. We had done so many episodes, and 99% of those episodes were just screaming. There's all kinds of screaming. We're saving things, we're saving people, but we're screaming. And so when it got to the real core of everything, yeah, I remember recording, and you, as an actor, you really are there. You're right there, and you're all emotional, and I remember leaving the session spent. I felt, I do some on-camera stuff too, and if you do any kind of scene where it's emotional or you're crying or it's just draining, you leave set spent, exhausted, as if you'd gone through, and I have twice, labor twice. Because it's just this, like it just takes so much out of you. So I remember feeling that, really, the exhaustion from those scenes, but yeah.
And sometimes you'd walk in and they'd have already done it, and they'd be like, "Whoa, good luck with today." What?
Yes.
If you could pick another character on Sailor Moon, who would you want to be? Except for Sailor Moon.
All right, you're going to make me do this, aren't you? All right. All right, so the thing is, first of all, normally I would say Jupiter, because I'm kind of a sporty girl. I'm like a little bit tough. I don't mind cooking. And I hate to say this out loud, because it's only going to go straight to her head, but I kind of like the bitchiness of... It was loyalty, damn it! Because that's kind of what I'm also like, a little combination of the two there, so...
You know, outside of this, we're really good friends, right? Right? Caitlin?
Yes, Katie.
We're really, really good friends.
Next question.
John, would you ever do anything while directing them to like throw off the actors?
Would I do things to throw them off? Do I look like that kind of guy? That I would disrupt a session just like to get a laugh? Please, of course I did.
You arrived on set.
Yeah. Well, I generally, as a voice director, I like turning to the producer and mocking performers when they're in the script. I won't do it directly to them, but it's like my emotional relief. Because, you know, as a voice director, they get to stand up and they move around in the rain and I'm there all day, right? Person after person after person after person. And you get a little stir crazy. So you have to find some way, and I don't mean to sound cruel, but you got to find some way to kind of break it up, because otherwise you want to put a gun to your head at some point, because it's all, the energy level is so high. So, I think the only time I would really intrude in a session, and I still do it to this day really, is is to make people laugh and to sometimes break a serious situation, even if it's a serious scene. Being funny just kind of relaxes people and lets them know that, you know what we do is really wonderful, but let's all remember we're not coming up with a cure for crib death here. This is animation. We're blessed to be doing something that's, you know, in some ways frivolous, although it does have its wonderful serious payoff at times, you know, so we got to keep it light. And that's the only time I will kind of interfere or intrude in a session.
You basically take your pants off, John.
Pants off.
Yeah, well, but I don't face you.
Which is worse? Which is worse?
Who's your favorite villain and why?
Luna.
Zoisite.
Yeah.
Throws glass. Hurts.
I was gonna say Zoisite too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got wicked rock hair too.
Yeah.
I guarantee you throw that guy a guitar, he'd do it.
Or actually, a friend of mine, Lion Smith, played Sapphire. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a good one too. But I'm
Everything got red about you, huh?
what's that?
Mars, red, Sapphire, red.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
I'm colorblind, stupid.
Oh,
The joke's on you, Katie. Stupid. I'll just go to sleep.
What are some of the weirdest things that have happened while recording Sailor Moon?
I can add something. It's just you know, when it was done, remember we did it over 20 years ago now. And it was well before this one era of wonderful technology was upon us. And we would wait for elements to arrive at the studio. And it caused no end of disruption because we would get, we'd be waiting for actual physical delivery of materials. And they'd be coming by Purolator. And our producer would be, you know, going a little nutty because she had deadlines, and part of it would come, and something else wouldn't come with it. And it would be coming from another, because we had a video, we had what was called the rhythm band track, which was actually what all the performers would read, and they were run simultaneously so that you could match the lips. That's the way they were assembled. And sometimes we'd have incorrect material. Sometimes the script would be wrong. I mean, it was just, it could almost be nightmarish at times. It's amazing, truly, that the series got done, because it was just fraught with all this craziness and panic, and it was frantic half the time. And calling people in, and for like, you'd come in, I sometimes come in and do 3 lines because they, you know, something had been left out. And how did it get left out? Well, somebody lost a page or something. It was crazy.
One of the other things that was kind of funny about doing Sailor Moon was any eye movements, or like if somebody sort of went like this, they wanted us to make a sound for everything, just in case they needed it. But they didn't know if they needed it or not, so just do it anyways. So you got to the point where like every time Sailor Moon would lift up an eyebrow or something, so you were constantly doing those noises. And I would go home, and we'd be sitting around the dinner table, and my daughters would say, "I don't want to eat this," and I go, and they say, "I don't like this." And I was constantly doing this. I couldn't stop. It was driving my family crazy. It was driving me crazy, but I couldn't stop doing it.
The ha's were the most fun, though.
The what?
Yeah, with all.
Yeah, so that comes up anytime they don't know how to translate something. They don't really know what the lip flap means. They don't really know what to do. They'll write huh. So you're saying your line. You know, well, I think this is really great, and it would be really nice. Huh, huh, huh. And it just out of nowhere, because the lip flap matches the word huh. So if you listen, you'll hear a powerful amount of hahs that don't really have anything to do with the plot whatsoever. It's just kind of like filler. You know what? We have about 2 minutes left, so let's see if there's any more questions from someone who hasn't asked.
Someone who hasn't?
How did you feel about Sailor Moon Says and the need for educational content in cartoons at that time?
That's a great question. Did everybody hear that? How did we feel about the Sailor Moon Says and the need for educational content in the show as it was in North America?
You should ask, because I didn't have to do Sailor Moon Says. It was done by the time I started, I believe.
But they stopped doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how do you feel about it?
Well, I remember I was on the heels of G.I. Joe, wasn't it? And knowing was half the battle. It was always that kind of thing. There was that last bit of message. I don't know. I think for the time it was probably correct. But then they realized that maybe they should hold off and maybe less on the Mr. T kind of thing going on there.
And didn't they also do it to fill in some time?
They just did it to fill in time because they had cut so much stuff that very often they were short. Is that my taxi? So very
Fries
often,
are ready.
they were short, so they came up with this idea to fill in the time at the end. And I must admit, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's kind of cheesy. And all it would be doing would be lifting, of course, sentences from the episode that had just been shown, and they would just sort of wrap it up into some sort of moral statement. I wasn't crazy about it, and I honestly didn't know that they did away with it.
I think we did some of them, but I can't even remember.
Okay.
See, the whole educational thing was just starting then. It was at that time they were just starting to bring in educators and psychologists and finding out the effects of different whatever on children and what ages. Today, you can't do anything without a bank of people surveying every script and every nuance of every character's delivery. It's unbelievable now, because we're in an era of total political correctness. That's why cartoons don't have that same kind of, they've lost that element of just being somewhat carefree and purely entertaining, because always,
Well, the last one was Sailor Moon Says, "Don't lick outlets." I think that's. Yeah. Maybe we should just hold off. I think that's common knowledge.
One last great question to round up a wonderful panel with you guys. Who's it going to be? Who's going to pay me? Come on.
Somebody back there. Orange
Toby,
head.
if you actually were tuxedo masked, which Sailor Scout would you have chosen?
Oh man. You know I have to spend the whole weekend with these guys? Yeah. I'll give you $5.
Here we are.
Don't look at me, Linda. I love you. It would have been
I'm not
Sailor.
going to look at you, so.
Ours. You see what you did? You're a dirty dog.
That's the end of this weekend. Thanks for coming to our very